Hello, I'm Eric Meeks. Some of you out there know me as the Realtor Guy. I'm broker owner of Remax Desert Properties, and today I want to share a little training video about the process of closing. Many people, and whether even if they're moderately good agents, okay, they don't always put together the psychology of the process of closing. And I've looked at this a number of times in a number of industries, and I've applied my best techniques to understanding what it takes to walk a client through the process of buying a home. And there are some emotional ups and downs as you go through that. And as an agent, you have to be prepared to help all buyers, regardless of their situation, regardless of their knowledge or lack thereof, of what it takes to proceed and end up with a closing on a property after escrow and a happy buyer, because that is our ultimate goal that we are trying to do. So let me share with you the process of closing. Okay, the first step is being a good listener. And I got to tell you, that comes in to just any type of sale you could ever do. And it's the difference between a client opening up to you and just being with their arms folded the entire time, and you're pitching and pitching and pitching, and they ain't listening. You have to listen first. It's the way it has to be, because when you listen, you learn what's important to the client. And I'll tell you, they have to win far before any salesman ever gets a commission. And in the process of buying a home, they have to win a number of times. And it's important that they do, because if you're in this for the long haul, okay, which I am, and the agents who work for me are, and it's what we preach and teach and what we believe in, nobody wins until the client wins. And if you help a client be a happy client, then they could be a client for life. And it's not all about money, okay, for us here at Remax Desert Properties. I know money's important and you all need that in order to live, but it's more about helping people, okay? And we're not a charity. I don't want to go too far that direction either, although we do have charity in our souls. The important thing though is that the client has to be happy, because if you have a happy client, it just makes business easier. It'll make the closing easier. It'll make their buying easier. It'll make the getting referrals from them easier. And I'll tell you, after you're a good listener, and you should be making some mental check marks, even if you aren't writing it down. And writing down these things are good to do. It's okay to tell the client, do you mind if I take some notes? They will respect you for it. Okay, so the first step is listening. And the second step is telling the client that if they are dissatisfied with you at any time, you're happy to get your broker or more senior agent to assist. And I know right now out there, some of you, especially those of you of moderate strength and better, are probably saying, whoa, Eric, okay, I'm not turning over my clients to anybody. I understand. Okay. And you're probably never going to have to, because if you've got a good heart and you've got a solid head and you know your skills, you probably never have to do it. But imagine the comfort level that you've just given your client in knowing that, wow, if he's really serious or she's really serious, if I'm not happy, they're going to let me go right to the top. And I'll tell you, I take that phone call any day of the week, and I support my agents, and I try to put the people back together, handle whatever the issue was at the time, put them right back with the same client, or play a small part in the transaction myself to help that agent connect better with the client and foment better understanding. I also tell my clients this, and I recommend that each of you do too. But if they find they like you, and that's exactly how I phrase it. But Mr. and Mrs. Client, if you find you like me, the chances are that not only are you going to buy a home, but we're going to become really good friends. And they might say why, or they might just kind of be quiet for a second, and they're thinking, why? What's this guy saying? And the truth is, Mr. and Mrs. Client, that nobody buys from an agent they don't like. And this is a big decision. I recognize it's a big decision for you. I don't care if this is your 10th house or your first. It's a big decision. And if you like me, chances are good you're going to buy, because I'll tell you, I'm not bad at my job. I'm pretty good. And I want you to be happiest in everything that we do. That is number one most important to me. So if we can achieve that, I'll tell you, we'll have connected pretty well. So Be ready to have a new friend. Now, one other thing, and I'll hit this up with this. And I don't put this down here in writing because not every agent buys into this, but I'll tell you, this was a very strong component of my marketing channels that I set up when I was a realtor out there in the world, just meeting and greeting and selling clients. I would tell them very early on, and I might bring it up 2 or 3 times through the deal. And I would say, by the way, I just want you to know that if you do buy and you do like me, you don't have to do this. But you remember back in the day when people would write testimonial letters? They go, yeah, and your eyes would get a little big. You say, no, kind of what's coming. I said, well, these days, I really like doing it with a video. And if you're comfortable with it, would you think about doing a testimonial video for me after purchasing? And most times they're going to say, I don't, let's just see how things go. Okay. And that's okay. Don't push them on it. All you want to do is have planted the seed, because you may not get it. Not everybody is comfortable in front of video. Not everybody is going to feel strong enough about their connection with you in it. There could be a dozen reasons why they end up saying no. But if that 1 out of 12 comes forward and does it, to be able to put 1 or 2 or 3 new video testimonials into your marketing strategies a year is huge. Okay, absolutely huge. It'll put you leaps and bounds in front of other agents out there. And you see how on the bottom left here of the screen where it says create cheerleaders? This is one of those times that you create a cheerleader. And if you can do that, my goodness, there is nothing, well, I shouldn't say nothing. There is only one thing stronger than a video of your client talking about how great you are. Okay, and that's them doing it in real time. So it is the second best marketing piece you will ever do. But those cheerleaders that you can create, and that is our ultimate goal, because if you make somebody so happy with their home that they honestly can't imagine selling it, that they can't imagine ever moving, that it was a dream for them to get to this point. And I'll tell you, you have the opportunity to do this with every client you ever sell, every person's hand you ever shake. If you can do that through the process of closing, you're one of the best. And I hope that that's what you become. My goal as you watch these videos is to help you to become a strong, independent agent. So let's move forward with the process of closing. We talked about listening. We talked about telling him that if you need help, you'll go get it. This does allow you to take a turn on the table, so to speak. And if they like you, chances are strong you're going to be really good friends. Now, the process here of closing. There's 6 basic steps, and I know we could break it down to even more than that. And one step that I don't include in here is marketing. And your number one effort you should ever put into your real estate business is marketing. But we're going to assume that you've already done that and you've got somebody in front of you. I don't care if it's on the phone, in an email, in person. Ultimately, they all need to end up in person. So let's say that you're somewhere in that beyond the very first, contact where maybe they just sent an email into you through one of your websites that you get leads from. Okay, let's call it the point of contact. This is where you get to have a good conversation. Let me have a little water there. It's at this point that most clients have a wall of defenses up. They know what they want, and they want somebody to help them find it, but they don't know yet if you're that person. So it's that point of contact, that initial point of contact where you get a good conversation. And this is where you have to do a bit of pre-quality. Now, the what, and why is the way that I was taught to how to do discovery questions. Discovery questions are basically you want to discover what the buyer is interested in buying. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, let me ask you, what would you like in a home? Okay, you like something modern, something that doesn't need a lot of work. Do you know how many bedrooms you want? Do you know where you'd like it to be? Do you have a budget? Do you have any of these things? And you ask these what questions. What are you interested in? And then you have to do a follow-up, okay, with that. The first what is, what are you looking for in a home? The second one is, well, what do you mean by that? And even if the answer is obvious, what do you mean by that? Ask the question. Because if somebody says, well, I want a 3-bedroom home, okay, for my family, what do you mean by that? Could mean, what's your family look like? Is it 3 kids and 2 parents? Do you have a mom or a dad living with you? Do you have a dog, a cat? Uh, everybody's family is different. Okay. And so asking them, what do you mean by that? Okay, is a good follow-up question. And the last one, and hopefully you've taken notes through this here. So they want a 2-bedroom condo on a golf course somewhere where they can play golf without it being too expensive, or they love tennis, or they've got a kid going to college and they want to be in bicycle riding distance, or you've got a single mom who wants to make sure that she has low maintenance, low HOAs, and a place that won't be upset at her having kids, whatever is their needs. The final question you ask is why? Why, above all things that you could have mentioned, was that so important to you? And you make them just explain it a little bit more. Okay. And when you do this here, you'll really get to know your clients on a personal level. And you see over on the left-hand side, the very first close is the Ben Franklin. And you're not using the Ben Franklin right now, but you're kind of arming yourself with the information. So if you need it later, you can do the Ben Franklin. And the Ben Franklin close is basically this. And it was originated by Ben Franklin. That's why it gets named for him. Okay. You make a list on one side of a sheet of paper of all the positive things with a home, okay, that the people like. And then over on the other side of the paper, you make another list of all the negative things. And usually on the one side where it's all the positive stuff, you're going to have features of the home, location of the home, amenities nearby the home, school districts around the home. You're going to have stuff like that. Over on the left-hand side, oftentimes it's going to be price, okay, where it's at, or some feature of the home that maybe they don't like so much. And you just want to load these bullet points into your mind so that you can use that later on. Now, the Ben Duffy, this is one, it's a closed, but you use it to pivot. Okay, the Ben Duffy is basically this, and you're going to use it very early on in the conversation. You're going to say, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I want to, or at this point, they're just Mr. and Mrs. Client. You don't even know for sure if they're a buyer. I have a couple of questions that I'm going to need to ask you, okay, throughout this transaction, and some here in just a minute. But before we do, could I share with you a couple of the questions that most people have of me, and I'm happy to answer any others that you have too? And they're going to say, okay, yeah. And the reason this is called Ben Duffy is because sometime back in the early 1900s, a guy named Ben Duffy made this his standard opening that he did with clients. And he would basically say, most people want to know this. How can I trust you? How do I know you're really going to help me find what I want? And how are you different than any other agent? Would you say that those are fair questions that you have for me up front? And you should say to them these things. And I'll tell you, they're going to say, yeah. If they've never met you before, if they've just gotten you as a lead through the internet, or sometimes even if they're a referral through a friend, they still have those concerns. Okay, how do I trust you? How do I know you're really going to help me? And how are you different than the other guy? And basically, you just have to answer it for them like this. I'm going to earn your trust. I'll tell you, I've done it a lot of times for a lot of other people. Or even if you're brand new out there, you got to say, folks, I'm brand new at this. You are my first client. And I'll tell you, I'm going to use everything I've learned, okay, to get me this far. And this is where, if you don't already have a teammate, your broker is your teammate. And you say, and if there is some point that I don't know the answer, I'm either going to go find it, or I'm going to turn to my broker and I'm going to get you that answer. So I can understand there being a little bit of lack of surety, okay, in the trust department, but I promise you, I'm going to tell you the truth at all times, even if it's not to my benefit. Secondly, you want to know, how do you know that I'm going to find you what you want? I say, well, I'll tell you, when we first start off, I'm going to listen first off, and I'm going to take all the information you give me, and I'm going to come up with a list of homes to put in front of you. And I want you to know first off, it's going to be a pretty good list. but it's not a perfect list. If we were shooting arrows at a target, they would all be on the target. But you know how on a target you've got the brown border and then the white and then the green and then the yellow, then some more white and then a red bullseye? We're going to hit the target. Okay, my first round. If I hit a bullseye, I will be extremely lucky. But if you'll let me show you these homes, and then you let me listen some more and watch how you interact with them. When I go home that night and I search a second time, because as good as I am at listening and wanting to hear every detail that you have, I'm not perfect either. But I'll tell you, when I do that second search, we should be hitting nothing but bullseyes. So if you will work with me a little bit on this process, I promise you I will help you get there quickly and surely and safely, and you will understand and watch the process the entire way. Is that fair? Remember that phrase, is that fair? I use that phrase a lot in my selling to get over the little closes. And they'll say, yeah, that's fair. If they're fair people, they'll say, yeah, that's fair. I mean, they understand it takes a little bit of a process, and buying a home is a process. Buying a home is a process of elimination. There is so much information out there in the world that the average shopper does not know what information to pay attention to. And that's where the return to the human, that is you, the agent, becomes of value. Okay. And what was the last one there? How do I trust you? And how are you going to be different than the other guys? I'll tell you how. I'm going to tell you things that you're not always going to like. That's going to be it. I am not a yes man. I am not a yes woman. Whichever gender you are as an agent, I tell the truth, and it's not always going to be the best thing. But just like a good friend, I hope we'll still be friends afterwards, and I will help you get through these houses. And by showing you the truth of them, we'll figure out what's the best options for you. Is that fair? Okay, so we've gotten through the Ben Duffy. We've loaded our arsenal a little bit for the Ben Franklin by asking our what, and whys. Let's move on here just a little bit, okay? And this year, I talked a lot about this here in that last minute or two they had, but you've got to be a good listener before you can be a good closer, okay? Make sure the buyer has the ability to buy. And this is part of your pre-qual. And oftentimes I will say that with people, or I'll say this with people. I'll say, okay, now let me put my salesman hat on for a second. Truth is, you've been a salesman the whole time. But what this does for the buyer or seller out there is it lets them know that this is an important question. They'll set up a little straighter in their chair. They'll look you a little more in the eye, like that there. And you ask them, if we find the right home, are you in a position to take advantage of it? And you can say, are you in a position to buy? I like softening it up a little bit. I think it helps because we're kind of earlier in the conversation here. But you need to figure out, have they talked to a lender? Do they know what kind of loan they've qualified for? Do they know what their monthly payment is going to be if they find a home within that loan range that they like? Do they need to sell another home first, okay, before they can buy this one? All of those types of things you need to know going out the gate, because that's going to determine how much time and what level of searching for homes for them that you're going to give, or how you're going to help them through those hurdles. You might need to recommend a lender as part of this. So, and then you've got to also ask who the decision maker is. And I find that it's often best to just kind of do this as a joke. Now, if they're a husband and wife, and you can tell by body language on it, and you can sometimes tell by the way they answer their what, and why questions, their discovery questions, who's really most important in it. You know, because if they say it's got to have a great kitchen, and the wife is obviously the cook, that's not always the case these days. But if you can tell there's something, or if it's got to have a garage with a handyman area for the husband, or whatever it is. I mean, you'll see a den that's going to be an office for somebody. Okay. And I don't mean to put gender specific roles into these here, because it could be a woman who's a handyman or a man who's a cook. Okay. That's just the way the world is today. But as you get a feel for who is looking for the most important qualities in the home, you'll get the feeling for this. But you also might just want to ask. Sometimes I'm dealing with two couples. They're talking about both of them going and partners on a home, which is not always the best idea, but I'll simply ask the group, okay, I just need to know something here. Who's the decision maker? And notice I shut up. Because what you'll see is if there's two couples, you'll see 3 out of 4 people turn and look at one other person. And that person will go, what? And everybody knows who the decision maker is in the group. Okay, it's just kind of funny to see. And that'll just help you as you begin to present and show benefits to where you should tailor it to that person. Or if you want to tailor certain benefits during your pitch to it. I mentioned the gather information to later deliver a Ben Franklin close, use a Ben Duffy close, whoop, whoop, whoop. And then lastly, ask them, okay. And it's okay to ask this early on. This is at the point that you've done your investigations, you've done your discovery, you've done some sample questions about whether they're pre-qualified, and then you ask them, okay, if we find just the right place at just the right price, are you ready to become an owner? This is one of the little closes that prepare you for the big closes later on. And so you do that there and you hopefully get a yes. If not, you need to know why it's a no. And that way you can save that bullet, because you may end up closing as you go through a house. Man, isn't this just the right kitchen? I mean, are you happy with this kitchen? Is it, in my mind, this was what you were looking for. How'd I do? And if they, oh yeah, I like the kitchen. This is great. Yeah, whatever. Well, I can't promise this kitchen is going to be here. You say you still need to talk to your lender. You got to talk to your parent, accountant, priest, whatever it is, you know, that somebody sometimes throws out there that they have to talk to before they can make a decision. But keep this in mind. We got a couple more houses like, but I'll tell you, I'll be surprised if this one is still here in a week or two. And then move on. Sometimes closing is planting seeds. Okay, finding a home. This is where you're going to show your technical skills. I talked about how you're not perfect. The homes aren't always perfect, that we're shooting at a target and then we want to focus in more on the bullseye. Okay, so this is where you really prove to them and why it's important to practice at times. Searching the MLS, pretending you're a client, searching the MLS. Okay, what if I want an HOA under $500 a month with a golf course view of a 3-bedroom home? Okay, what if I want a single family home in Cathedral City under $300,000 and with a pool? Is there anything like that there? What if I want a Palm Springs mid-century modern home and it's got to have a pool and be a fantastic VRBO location? You know, people have their own profile of a home that they want. And so you've got to be able, and this is something in our office here at RE/MAX Desert Properties, where we will make agents train to sit floor time. Because in my mind, if you can't land that person on a home in 2 to 5 minutes and be showing them something on the big screen, because when you're sitting floor time in an office, you've usually got a computer and a big screen there that you can do it. If you can't do that in 2 to 5 minutes, you need to go back to school. Okay? People don't trust you. They just walked in the door. You're just a salesman. And the fastest way to gain their trust is to show them a product at lightning speed that fits the bill of what they want, or at least hits the target. Don't have to be a bullseye, but the closer to that bullseye you can get in 5 minutes or less, the more they're going to sit up in the chair and go, "Phew, this young lady knows her stuff. This man knows what he's doing." Okay, and you'll see a body change in them. Okay, you also have to be able to talk about the neighborhoods, about the city amenities. And when I say city amenities, the businesses nearby. Where's your closest grocery store to what they're looking at? You know, where's their closest gas station? Where's the closest freeway exit, on-ramp, on-ramp? Know about the schools in the area, the demographics of the area. Okay, if it's an HOA, know a little bit about the HOA. You don't have to be perfect, and some of the information you can pick out of the MLS. But you need to start gathering this information and just have it right up here in the old nutshell so that you can talk real time with people and everything doesn't become, I will get you that information. I will get you that, which is a good answer. But the less you can do that, the more the people are going to respect you. And your very first close is going to be, have we found the right home? Because after you've done all that targeting and hitting the bullseye, at some point, You want to ask them, have we found the right home? Because you want to do during the process of closing is getting to the point of making an offer. Okay, and this is your real ask to buy. And your first ask to buy is very simple. They've trusted you, you've earned their trust by speaking honestly and going through the technology quickly. You don't just tell them what you think they want to hear. You tell them the good and the bad of every situation. So they're a part of the decision-making process. This is how people emotionally buy in. And now you're ready for your ask to buy, and here it is. You've asked them what they like and what they don't like. And if you know this is the best home for them, not necessarily the one that's an absolute dead center target, but the best home for them on the market based on what they want. And they kind of feel that too. You've been very open and honest. Your first close is, do you like the home? Would you like to own the home? And shut up. You've talked and talked and talked. At this point here, do you like the home and would you like to own the home? It's a very simple close. It's just called an ask to buy. That's all it is. And hopefully they say yes. We're going to pretend for the purpose of this webinar that we're doing right now that they say, if they don't say yes, you have to go back and figure out why they don't like it. You might have to explain, well, of everything out there, this was the best. Or if it's price, that leads right into making an offer, okay, on it. But somehow we're going to pretend that we've dealt with those things and we're getting to a yes. For me personally, I don't always take the first yes, okay? And I learned this one here, and I know this is going to be a little bit politically incorrect, okay? So help me modify this to a phrase that's more 21st century political correctness of where it is today. But I learned this story from a guy somewhere around the year 1900. And I can't remember if he was selling washing machines or electric light bulbs, but it was some newfangled technology at the time that was kind of expensive in those days. He might have been selling farm equipment, okay? And he was selling it to an Indian. And at the time that he was selling, he was told that an Indian who says ugh once doesn't really mean yes. They mean, I understand you, but it doesn't mean, yes, I want to buy. And I'll tell you, my wife does this sometimes, okay, with me, and I'll see her as we're talking about something, and she'll say, okay, or yes, or that there. And I'll have to look at her and say, okay, are you agreeing with me? Or are you saying that you're just kind of letting this moment move on and you're letting the conversation go, but you're not really agreeing? And this is why I don't always take the first yes. Because a good Indian thinks they're doing the right thing here. And in their mind, they are. There is no right or wrong for this, and each person is different. Okay, and they're allowed to do whatever is right for them. But we're looking to make a sale with a buyer who is very happy with the product, or at least as happy as can be had on their desires and wishes. So make them say yes twice. Okay, I'm hearing you say yes, you'd like to own this home. So I just want to make sure we hit the kitchen right. We got the garage set up right the way that you want it. We got the backyard right. Okay, everything's good. You don't have to sell your other home right. So in your mind, you're just kind of going through a little bit of a checklist. So if this one, if we can get it to the right price, or maybe they've already set a price, but if we can get it to the right price, you don't have to sell your home. You really want to own it? I'll make them go through a second yes. And they'll say, yeah, we think this is the one. You know, you've shown us a half a dozen or a dozen homes. We've been out 2 days with you. This, yeah, I think this is the right one. Okay, let's make an offer. And at that point, I'll roll right into it. Okay, and I'll say, so what are you thinking? You know, they're asking $345 or they're asking $995. You know, whatever is the price range in that market of home that you're looking at. And then they'll come up with a price Sometimes I'll have the paperwork right in my folder, okay, that I carry with me. Sometimes I'll make them drive to the office. I don't mind a little bit of time right at this point. And it depends on my busyness, my schedule, where the market is, all of these things. But if there needs to be a momentary delay, it's okay because the husband and wife get a second alone, okay, that they can discuss in their car while they're following you, or even in your car while they're with you to the office. And to hear them hash out their likes and they don't likes, or their fears if the deal goes one direction versus if it goes another, and how they're going to emotionally and financially handle it. Those are huge bits of information for you to just kind of tuck away, and you can play a part in the conversation. I mean, you've made a friend at this point and they're going to respect your opinion, but you got to let it play out a little too. So make them say yes twice, write the offer. And now we're going to do the negotiating parts. We want to get to acceptance. There's that gap between writing an offer and getting it accepted by the sellers. Okay, and this is where you're often going to have to get a bump in price. The people will say, if it was a $400,000, well, if they'd sell it for $350, I'd buy it today. Well, whatever is the price on that there. Well, they're probably not going to sell it for $350. If they're at $400, $350 is kind of um, a big bump in price, or a big drop in price, I should say. I usually at this point, um, I try to set the people up. And for the longest time, I'll tell you, I bring up early in the conversation, because I talk about setting expectations early on, like it was in my webinar here on the screen. I will sometimes set people for the expectations that most homes sell between 2 and 5% of their asking price. That's not to say all. There may be some that get more off than that. There may be some that sell over asking price, but that's pretty normal. But I'll tell you, right now in today's market, most homes are selling between 1 and 3% of their asking price. So you've got to be ready for that. There's to get a bump out of people, I sometimes have to, man, I've been at this longer than I thought. I sometimes have to use a story, okay, where I do it. And that's, I tell them a story about my dad. And this is a real story that my dad told me when I was looking to buy my house and I was trying to negotiate down. I was not a real estate agent at this time. My current, not current, but my wife, Tracy, okay, she was my real estate agent at the time, and we had already been dating and stuff in those days. And I could tell she was getting frustrated with me because I kept trying to be the wheeler dealer, okay, and get a fantastic deal on a home. And after about the third one I missed, okay, my dad kind of talked to me at one point and said, look, son, it's okay if you pay a little more for your house. It's the one time in life that it's really all right. Because first off, you're going to live in it, right? So 10, 20, 30 years from now, you're not going to think about that $5,000 or $20,000 extra or $50,000 extra, whatever is the price bump that you really have to need to get into reality. Okay. You're not going to think about that. You're going to think about the times you had in the home. You're going to think about the kids you raised, the Thanksgiving and Christmases you had, about the really fun times. You're going to think about those. And therefore, it's okay if you pay a little bit extra. And so for me, at that home, number 4 that I saw with Tracy, I went 5,000 over asking price, and I got the home. And we've lived in that home for 20 years, and it's been a fantastic. And my dad was right. So there's all you. If you don't have your own story similar to that, tell them mine. Okay, it's okay to do. It should be a genuine story, one that you really emotionally buy into, and it's a good story, and it's the truth. Okay, I told you in the beginning that I was going to talk to you about things that you want to hear and don't want to hear, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Well, that's one of them, and that's an honest to goodness story for me. Also, sometimes you're going to have to bring up what's called the cost close. Okay, and this is where you have to say to your buyer, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, can I ask you a question? Are you really more interested in price or cost? And a savvy buyer knows the difference between the two, but not everybody does. So, and for those who don't, they're gonna say, well, what do you mean? Of course, I mean, I want the best price. I say, I understand, but this house is a good 30, $40,000. We're not quite the 400, but they're at 380. You want it to be 350. But let me ask you, a lot of those houses that we saw didn't have a pool, right? Right. Okay. A lot of those houses that we looked at that were lower in price, they looked like they had a lot of deferred maintenance. Would you agree? I mean, old hot water heaters, sidewalks that were cracked, paint that needed to be freshened up, whatever it is. You'll have your own list of stuff that you could do. We're kind of building a Ben Franklin close here, okay? But we're coming close. This one's called the cost close. So if you add up all those things, the deferred maintenance, the pool that this one's get, um, the maybe the school district or whatever, the proximity to some other feature that's important to this buyer on it, those things have a value, correct? So wouldn't it be fair? Remember the be fair close that I used earlier? Wouldn't it be fair to consider this home worthy of a little more price, because the actual cost to you is that you're not going to have to paint it, you're not going to have to put in a pool, you're not going to have to fix the sidewalks, all those things. So in essence, you're buying it more complete. Notice I shut up. You've explained the difference, and it's just a basic school of logic is all you're looking to do here. And hopefully this gets you through it. And also during acceptance, this is an area where your phones, your emails, your e-signatures, a little bit of technology plays in a different way than finding the house. But this entire process, this is where you show the client your value as an agent. And sometimes we have to get a bump out of our clients. But also, if you ever have a chance to talk to the other agent and do them on speakerphone with your clients there and let them see you go to bat for them, I'll tell you, that's huge. I've done that a few times in my sales career. It doesn't always play out. Oftentimes you're talking to your buyer on the phone and they're in some other part of the country, and then you're calling the other agent and talking to them that there. But there have been times where I've been able to do it. There's been times where I've gone on and done a Zoom meeting like this with my clients so I can re-explain to them the value and how the home comps out. But all of those things plays into the technology. Ultimately, though, it comes down to a price versus cost. And are they willing to pay the price that's fair for the home? And if they do, you're more likely to get a sale. If they don't, whatever is the price, you're going to go defend it because you are their agent. So don't forget that too. And I bring that up with people sometimes. I'll say, look, guys, ultimately, this is all your choice. And I am your agent, and I will defend whatever you want. I will just simply tell you what I see in the market and what I think is most likely to create a sell. Now, how bad do you want this home, and what do you want me to do? Notice that's another close. I'll throw in that one as a bonus. Let's say you get through it. You're in escrow. Okay, you've got a number accepted for the house. The next critical juncture is the request for repairs. And I'll tell you, this is the most common spot in any transaction where sales are broken. This is where the house is being inspected. This is where a difficult buyer is going to create a laundry list of items that they want the seller to fix before they'll complete. This is where they're going to come up with a huge number, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, okay, that they want in order to buy this home. This is where many buyers see themselves taking a second bite at the apple and really whittling down the price. And you're not going to take that away from every buyer. There's a lot of buyers, that's just how they are. They're more savvy than they ever led you to believe earlier, and they know that this can be done. Okay, but where you can, you want to minimize negativity, smooth frustrations, okay? And this step is not so much about closing as it is about satisfying your client, or at least making them as satisfied as you can, okay? Because this is where your understanding of working systems in a home come into importance. And not everybody out there is. I'll tell you, when I first started selling homes, I didn't understand how much it cost to re-roof a home, or what it cost to replace a hot water heater, or just slide a pan under a hot water heater, or a GFCI electrical outlet, and what it takes to get that, updated, or an electrical. None of those things I didn't do. And this is an area where I don't know, but I'll get you the information. Sometimes comes up. But I'll tell you, this is where it's really important that you have yourself a good handyman, because oftentimes they'll say, well, I need an electrician, or I need a roofer, or I need that. Well, you don't always need that level. Let's get some costs. Let's get some bids. Let's do that and figure out the best way to attack this. Now, sometimes with a buyer or seller, you can just simply come up with a price. Well, in lieu of doing these repairs, what if we asked for $3,000 off or $5,000 off? Don't throw out the whole front. Well, that's going to be a $50,000 fix. Don't, if you're thinking big numbers, don't ever throw it out there, because whatever you say, your buyers are going to buy into that. Start low, start reasonable. Where you don't know, say, do you mind if I get a price first? Okay. If they know somebody, and ask them, do you know somebody who's an electrician or a roofer or a contractor or a handyman, or somebody that you respect their opinion of? Because it's fair for us to get second opinions on this and see what they say. They might. But if not, this is a good place to come to your broker and say, Mr. Broker, I don't know a roofer. I don't know a handyman. Do you know anybody I could call to help me through this request for repair? And say, create a bullet list of the things that are important to your client so they can see you working. Make sure they confirm what's on that bullet list, and then work it. Okay? Because the more you can minimize the effect of this on the transaction, or minimize I can't even think of the right word, minimize the mal intent of this on the deal, minimize the delayed maintenance, okay, of this on the home, the better the home will be in the buyer's eyes. The smaller these items are, the greater the home is. Okay, and so that's your job. And you don't want to lie or misrepresent or anything like that. But most times, every home needs some. I even see brand new homes, okay, end up with a laundry list of items, okay, on them. So just work the list, get it as reasonable as you can, because in the buyer's mind, $1,000 or $2,000 item might turn out to be a $200 to $300 item. And then suddenly, as they see that and they see these bids come together, and it'll take you a day to 5 days to do this. It's not going to happen overnight, but you're going to work it. Okay, as they see this and they get a real cost on it, you'll see them kind of take a deep breath, and they'll fall in love with home. Oh, that's not as bad as I thought. Okay, yeah, I understand now. It'll be things like that. And this is real. This is real-time solutions to real-time problems. This is where a good realtor earns his or her salt. Get good at it. And the last thing is your closing, right? Okay. The best client to give you a referral is the one you just helped buy. This is where you hope that buyer says, oh my goodness, I can't believe we're closing. It was always a dream to own a house like this. We always wanted a second home in Palm Springs. I can't believe my kid's going to have their own bedroom. Our dog's going to have a place to run around without worrying about the neighbors. Oh man, whatever is the important things in their life, remember that kitchen or that garage that they really wanted? That's where this becomes real for them. Okay. This is where you're going to say to your clients, okay, I'm giving you the keys tomorrow night, but remember that testimonial video that I wanted you to do? Did I do a good job? Will you do that for me? And be quiet. They'll probably say yes at this point. Not all, but they'll do something. Okay. Also, enlarge your sphere with your buyers at this point. All of you should be working your sphere of influence. This is your Facebook friends. This is your Instagram account. This is your emails that you send out. Hopefully you're doing e-newsletters, okay, to your people. These are, not just friends and family, but your clients. And as your sphere grows, and when you're putting stuff into your Facebook weeks and months and years later, wouldn't you love it if one of your former clients said, hey, you've got to use Eric. He was the man when we bought our house over in Central Palm Desert or South Palm Springs or North Indio or La Quinta Cove or Cathedral City, wherever it was. They will stand up for you. They become your cheerleaders. And look again at that bottom left of the screen, create cheerleaders. If you've delivered good work, if you've walked them through the steps that it takes to buy a home, they will become cheerleaders for you. Not everybody's going to be the loudest cheerleader on the squad. But if you do a good job, they like saying nice things about good people, and you're good people at this point. Also, follow up with them. After you give them the key, call them a week later and say, hey, just wanted to check up with you. Is the home turning out the way you thought it would? And let them tell you, oh man, we can't believe it. You know, we can fit both our cars in the garage and still open the car doors. Man, our dog won't quit running in the backyard. He loves it back there. And our kid is playing with him all the time now. It's amazing. You'll get these stories and just listen and thank him again. Don't make it about him. Maybe you talk about that video and set a day for it, but go gentle on them. If there's some last tidbit of the deal that needs to be ironed out, you know, maybe you missed a paperwork that need to be signed or whatever, get it, you know, but make it more about them. Okay. A month later, call them again and just say, look, I just want to thank you again. And I hope you guys are still liking the home. You know, we never did make that video. Am I pushing too much to try to set a time with you this next week? Pick a time. If it's not next week, in the next few days, is it 2 weeks out? Whatever it is. Hopefully by then you will have sent them some sort of automated system like Zillow has to do written testimonials so they appear on your Zillow page. Some of the other real estate websites do similar things. You need to get good at sending those out. Build these testimonials in whatever form they are. If you have a Yelp page, okay, which I don't do, but if you do, you want Yelp reviews, okay? And then put them in your phone calendar for 1 year later. You'll probably talk to them even before then, but if you haven't, or if it's been light on the communications, call them a year out. You say, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, it's been a while since we talked. I just want you to know that I still really appreciate it. How are you doing these days? And just talk to them. Talk to them like people. Talk to them like the things that you remember. You know, I remember at the time that you wanted a place for your mom to live or your dad. Are they liking it? Have you had as much family and friends come out and visit you here at your second home in Palm Springs as what you thought they would? You don't even have to hit them up for business. Okay, that's not what this is about. Just letting them know you're there. Okay, they will remember you. It's important to do. So those are the process to closing. You've got your point of contact, you're finding a home, you're making an offer, you know, acceptance, request for repairs, and then closing and follow-up. I hope these steps help you, okay, and just listening to them, because you need to learn the process of a sale in everything you do. You need to load your brain with ammunition so you can have closes ready at each step. Closing a real estate transaction is not like helping somebody buy a washing machine at Sears. It's not like going to the supermarket and buying a bag of groceries. It's not like walking into a bookstore, one of my favorite things to do, and buying a book. It's a process. It's a process of elimination. It's a process of reinforcements. And if you get good about it, it will probably be what you do the rest of your life. I wish you lots of success in real estate. If there's anything I can ever do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. You'll see my email and my phone number in the boxes below. And thank you. My name's Eric Meeks. I'm the realtor guy, the broker owner of RE/MAX Desert Properties in Palm Springs and Indian Wells. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you again. Have a good day. Bye-bye.